I truly believe that this method is the most comprehensive and effective way for any HSP to handcraft a career path that is most suitable to who they are as an HSP individual. I'm going to share with you my 7-part formula for identifying your perfect career path as an HSP individual, as well as shed some light as to why an optimal career path for you as a highly sensitive person may have been a struggle thus far to pin down. But first, I want to say hi, I'm Tiara Ariel, a highly sensitive person and a certified coach. And I'm on a mission to empower HSPs and give them the information, tools, resources, and encouragement to thrive. I have an online program that I've built for highly sensitive people to climb out of survival mode and build lives that are authentically supportive and fulfilling to them. I also create lots of free content like this video here on YouTube. But my most special piece of free content is something you can only access via a direct link. And it's my in-depth masterclass on how to thrive as an HSP. So if you're interested in learning not only how to thrive in your career, but all areas of life as a highly sensitive person, you can view this extensive masterclass at tiaraariel.com/HSP. You can write this website down, or you can click the link in the description below and open it in a new tab. That way you can continue watching this video without losing the link or forgetting about it. Alright, let's talk about career. One of the most sought out answers in the highly sensitive community as a whole is what kind of a career an HSP should have. What is ideal for the HSP? And while there are a lot of good recommendations out there, and plenty of lists for suitable careers for HSPs that you can find, we also need to take into consideration our own uniqueness and individuality. While HSPs certainly have a lot in common with each other, since we all have sensitive nervous systems and brains that deeply process information, we're all still our own individual people, with unique experiences, beliefs, interests, upbringings, etc. So while you can scan a list of career options and feel out what calls to you, I feel that it's even more useful to look at who you specifically are, while also taking the trait into consideration, and design from scratch what would be suitable for you. Like a brainstorming session with no limitations, that once you've finished, you can then shape and form into what fits into our modern world and structure it as a career path. I find this approach to be more freeing, where you can come up with ideas you may never have considered had you just sifted through a list of standard options, like being a teacher, counselor, artist, researcher, or entrepreneur. And while many HSPs have had success in those professions, and they are all great ideas, that list is also still very vague. What should you teach, and where, and to whom? What kind of art should you create, and in what capacity? What kind of business should you start? There are still so many unanswered questions, right? Ideally, there would be a way to not only find a path that makes sense for the HSP, but that also is tailored to you as an individual. And why is it that career is such a big question mark for the HSP community in the first place? I'll share with you some of my own theory, because maybe you'll see yourself in what I describe and gain some validation for your experience, confirmation of your own value, and encouragement around the possibility of finding a good career groove for yourself. While studying the HSP trait, working with other HSPs, and reflecting on my own life as an HSP, for one, there seems to be strong evidence that highly sensitive people have different lifestyle needs than non-HSPs, which, if I'm being honest, is who it seems like majority of the workforce has been designed around and catered towards. And two, across the board, it seems that many HSPs deeply crave for their work to be meaningful, and struggle to find or fine-tune what would really excite them without draining them. Let me explain what I mean by these statements so that I'm not misunderstood in the claims that I'm making about HSPs and non-HSPs in general as collective groups. And to ensure that the emphasis here is put on my intention to outline the points that I feel help to validate the experience of the HSP struggling in their career. Because HSPs have more sensitive nervous systems and deeply process information, we tend to work best in settings where we can have more flexibility or control over our environments and work schedules, to have the ability to recognize when we need a stimulation break and to be able to step away, to work when we feel energized and to rest when we feel we need to. This is of course also true of the non-HSP as well, as all humans are best suited to roles where they can have their needs met as well as contribute. But that's the key here that I want to highlight when it comes to highly sensitive people, taking our unique sensory needs into account. Working long stretches of hours in busy or chaotic settings, I'd argue, isn't pleasant for anyone. But for someone with a sensitive nervous system and often highly active and deeply thoughtful mind, these types of environments can be more challenging and even detrimental to their well-being and therefore their productivity. Generally speaking, a non-HSP may be more able to tune out and put blinders on and just get the work done better than an HSP, whose sensory antennae are by nature dialed way up. As a very basic example, an HSP may need earplugs to work in a large marketplace or busy commuting station to be able to tolerate the sensory input and still be able to focus, whereas a non-HSP may be able to focus without such a need. In another example, a non-HSP may be more able to be satisfied with a shorter lunch break, not needing as much time to recharge, to process their experience, or for their nervous systems to destimulate and reset before diving back into the work. Whereas an HSP may be cut short in the middle of their processing and recharging time if they had the same length break as the non-HSP. This isn't to say that HSPs deserve more breaks than non-HSPs do, or to receive better treatment. It's again simply aiming to respect, acknowledge, and accommodate differences, and take into consideration and make the effort to meet individual needs, to create environments where everyone can best utilize their skills, be productive, and contribute while also feeling supported. The modern city-like culture in the workplace that we have these days, with 9-to-5 work schedules, long commutes, short breaks, busy work settings, emphasis on climbing the corporate ladder, and a high priority set on productivity and the sheer volume of achievements that are expected to be met in a single day, is a far cry from what is best suited for an HSP. Heck, it's probably a far cry for what's best suited for all of us humans, HSP or not, who biologically and evolutionarily are still the same as the humans who were accustomed to living in a more slow and intentional pace synced with nature. But this modern way of viewing career goals does present as a workforce that is designed much more for the success of those who are not as sensitive, who can get more done in a shorter period of time, who can go longer stretches without taking a break, and/or who can withstand more bombardments of sensory stimulation. Many HSPs find themselves in roles and environments that are better suited for non-HSPs, and thus really struggle to keep up, perform well, or even sustain the role at all. And the sad thing is, they can often end up walking away from those situations feeling defective, less than, or like they weren't valuable, when in reality, maybe all they needed to succeed and thrive in that situation was a quieter work environment, a shorter commute, a more flexible schedule, a workplace with better co-working boundaries, or team members that had better regulation skills or more emotional maturity, for example. In another video of mine entitled, "You're Too Sensitive, the Biggest Lie You've Been Told as an HSP," I emphasize that HSPs and non-HSPs are meant to coexist and lean on each other's skill sets and abilities and strengths to have the most successful society. I theorize that non-HSPs may take up the majority of the population percentage, around 80%, because they are best suited for the majority of workplace roles that happen in the thick of the hustle and bustle of everyday life, and that HSPs may take up the minority of the population percentage, around 20%, to be in the roles that are often fewer in number, that exist more on the outskirts of the hustle and bustle, doing advisory, organization, information gathering, or mediation tasks. HSPs and non-HSPs each have their own sets of skills, capacities, capabilities, and needs. And society as a whole benefits most when all of these things are utilized, placed well, and supported. I do not mean to say that one group is more valuable than the other, or that one group deserves to have their needs met more than the other. Everyone is valuable, and even more so in the right environment, and everyone deserves to be supported. The point I'm trying to highlight is that our differences are best to be acknowledged, taken into consideration, and utilized, offered, and placed where they are most useful, rather than forcing anyone into a role where they can't or won't thrive or be best of service. Because likely in the workplace scenarios I mentioned above, if the HSPs and non-HSPs were to switch places, the entire community would likely not function nearly as well. An HSP would likely drain much faster in a fast-paced, workhorse type of role that generally a non-HSP may be more likely to thrive in. And it's plausible that a non-HSP might have minute details fly under the radar more often in a more detail-oriented role that perhaps an HSP would be more likely to thrive in. It's about knowing where everyone's skills are needed most and taking the time to think that through. We as a collective are most productive and can accomplish more when we find the most suitable ways to work together. For example, a non-HSP could build a guitar, and the HSP could tune it. A non-HSP could write a novel, and the HSP could edit it. A non-HSP could gather the community, and the HSP could facilitate a discussion. An HSP could create a detailed schedule for an event, and the non-HSP could run it. These are, of course, just generalized examples, but I hope you see what I'm getting at here. Each has their strengths and weaknesses, and each is valuable in whatever role is best suited for them. And to bring this all back around to how this is relevant to this video, a large aspect of you finding a career path that feels fulfilling and sustainable is taking into consideration what you uniquely have to offer. and what your workplace needs are. What types of projects, tasks, environments, and schedules make you, the HSP and the individual, the most productive, the most passionate, and feel the most supported. The other point I mentioned above is about how many HSPs crave fulfillment in how they spend their time, and this oftentimes is a factor in an HSP's struggle to find a suitable career. This isn't to say that non-HSPs don't also crave and deserve fulfillment, but in my experience speaking with many HSPs, it seems almost as though HSPs have a harder time ignoring when they may feel unfulfilled, or it might be harder for them to keep going and push through things that don't feel fulfilling. And let me explain what I mean by that. Because we as HSPs have sensitive nervous systems and brains that deeply and thoroughly process information, we can drain more easily, which means it's important that wherever we choose to put our energy is wherever it is most useful and beneficial, wherever our energy would be leveraged most effectively. We have to be very intentional about where we use our energy, especially if life is challenging and we feel we have very little of it. And by the way, the more supportive your life is to you and your trait, the more energy you will have. Because HSPs are hyper-aware of or extra sensitive to sensations, shifts in their environments, positive and negative influences around them, and even their own thoughts, emotions, and the emotions of others, when they are feeling drained, unfulfilled, or even, let's say, have a headache, it's almost as though our tuning in devices remind us of these things more loudly and more often. So in a sense, anything out of alignment with us may in theory be harder for us to ignore as an HSP than it would be for a non-HSP. An internal alarm goes off sooner and more persistently in a sensitive system when something isn't right. As annoying as this can be sometimes, it's also in some ways kind of an advantage. Because in theory, we as HSPs may notice that something needs adjusting in our lives sooner than the non-HSP might. But if we don't, or feel we can't, do anything about whatever that thing is, then this constant nagging alarm system that something doesn't feel good becomes very hard to tolerate. Like trying to focus and go about your day with a smoke alarm going off in the background without being able to reach it. An HSP may have a hard time ignoring it, which is frustrating in the short term, but would be a good thing in the long term if there was a real genuine threat needing to be dealt with. And a non-HSP may have an easier time ignoring the alarm, which is better in the short term, but worse long term if it delays them attending to said impending threat. In society, we need the types of people who can acutely hear the alarm and people who can power through the alarm. Both have their place and time and are useful. When I used to live with a non-HSP and the smoke alarm would go off while we were cooking, I'd be the one opening all the windows and my non-HSP companion would be the one going to the alarm to turn it off. Both of our designated tasks were incredibly helpful in solving the problem, and I, the HSP, was thankful to have someone who could bear dealing with the alarm and was happy to be the one running around opening all the windows and wafting the stove. Both of where our tolerances and strengths lie balance beautifully when we make a point to work together. And it's worth mentioning again that, of course, all of these examples are just generalizations. As I've already mentioned, not every HSP or non-HSP is the same. We are all individuals. But for the sake of illustration, simplifying things a bit based on what is typical for each group is purposeful at the moment merely to point out how we tend to differ, and how these differences are beneficial, complement each other, and balance out in a well-rounded society. How every trait we have comes with strengths and weaknesses. And when we can all utilize and lean on each other's strengths, the better off we all are. In order for HSPs to thrive in career, we need to honor our needs as highly sensitive people. We need to know our skills and weaknesses and properly place ourselves in environments most conducive to our success, which subsequently happens to also be the places where we become the most valuable. The sustainability of our own energy and passion is a vital ingredient in career success for our own well-being and the success of whatever project we are working on or company or mission we are working for. We need to not only take into consideration our HSP trait, but also our uniqueness as an individual, and respect ourselves as well as non-HSPs for the contributions we are each all suitable and capable of giving, and know that everyone deserves to be in roles that they can thrive in, for their own betterment and the betterment of the greater whole in a society where we are all looking to grow and thrive side by side. Hopefully I've done a good job in giving you some understanding and validation as to why finding the right career path for you as an HSP may have thus far proven to be a struggle. Have done so while also making clear that HSPs and non-HSPs are equally valuable groups, are useful to society, and are deserving of support and fulfillment. I hope I have also given you hope that if you were to find the right career groove, which is possible for you, the path to career success could go much more smoothly. So with all of that said, let's get into how you might discover what would truly be the most fulfilling, supportive, sustainable, and lucrative career path for you, the highly sensitive individual, just as I have done, utilizing the following method. Before we get into the diagram I've created, I just want to quickly mention that if you're getting any value out of this video, I would love for you to give it a like. That will send a message directly to YouTube that you found this video worth watching, and it will therefore show this video to other HSP viewers like you in their feed. And of course, if you're an HSP determined to thrive, I would love to have you become a subscriber. You are exactly the kind of person that I've built this entire channel for. So welcome to the community, and I'm so glad my content found you. The best way that I've found to illustrate my ideas around identifying your perfect career path as an HSP is through a diagram that looks remarkably like a flower with 7 petals, hence the name the Flower Petal Method. I'll go through each section and use my own journey of discovering my ideal path as a way to illustrate each one. This can help you get a deeper understanding through seeing a real-life example of how you can apply these ideas. I truly believe that this method can be used by any HSP to come up with at least one, and potentially even more than one, great idea of a career path to pursue that is fulfilling, lucrative, and sustainable. The following are organized in no particular order. I'm just going to outline them in the way that makes the most sense for how it unfolded for me, but it doesn't matter when or how or in what order you identify these things for yourself. When I was growing up, I had many interests, most notably things like photography, theater, design, painting, and probably also animals, wellness, psychology, and filmmaking. I'm sure there are even still some that I'm forgetting, but looking at this list, there's obviously too many and too much of a variety for me to have had a clear favorite, to feel happy focusing on just one or even two without feeling like something was missing. I struggled when it came to selecting a field of study to pursue in college. I had no idea what to choose. At the time, I had been really involved with my theater program, and so I followed my heart, and with confirmation and encouragement from my peers and my mentor, I set off on an artistic path. And while I felt good about that pursuit, there were times when I regretted what I chose. Eventually, I switched majors, but this didn't help as much as I thought it would, because when I was studying one thing, no matter what it was, I was deeply missing the others. Besides what I was interested in, there were also things I was naturally good at, without really putting much effort or thought into it, and things that I chose to develop further skill sets in, whether they came naturally to me or not. These skills were spread across categories like art and design, and photography, organization, communication and persuasive writing, advising, and leadership, as well as things like problem solving, critical thinking and analysis, visual spatial reasoning, pattern recognition, as well as working with animals. Of all of my interests and skills, however, nothing really stuck out to me. I wasn't a prodigy or anything remarkable, in my opinion, in any one category or subject, so even though I was interested in the arts, I still didn't feel like I had a clear neon sign blinking at me about what to actually do with it. I didn't feel like I had that one thing I was exceedingly good at, and as a kid, I remembered being envious of my friends that were brilliant at playing an instrument, a top athlete in their sport, or some other outstanding talent they had spent years cultivating and were clearly decided on where they were headed. I never really stuck with any one thing long enough to feel like I had anywhere near mastered it, and I truly thought of my lack of genius in any one area as a disadvantage compared to my friends. It was only later in my life that I eventually realized being a sort of Jill of many trades was a huge asset for me and seemed perfectly designed for what I would do later as an entrepreneur. And it was actually only when I was working full-time in photography that a coworker of mine made it a point to bring to my attention during our lunches together that I was really good at making her feel comfortable talking to me about her life and giving her advice, and that I should think about coaching people for a living. Even still separate from my interests and skills were things I genuinely enjoyed doing. I loved working on stage productions and collaborating with other artists on larger creative projects. I loved taking pictures and being in nature and going on hikes with my camera. I also loved making videos, especially when I was younger. I really enjoyed helping people, and any chance I got to talk to anyone who would listen or was interested, I loved to discuss life and self-development. And for my own personal pastime, I loved spending time with my pets and doing many outdoor activities, any excuse to get outside in the sun and fresh air. Looking at this overall list of the things that I enjoyed doing, they all felt very disconnected and disjointed. So much of how I like to spend my time, I struggled to see as a viable option for becoming a lucrative venture. So I mostly just followed other people's advice for my career path and took whatever I felt like I could get with my degree after college, not exactly sure where I wanted to go. I worked in retail as an arts instructor to young kids, as a product photographer, just kind of sidestepping from one thing to the next, and unintentionally began figuring out what suited me and what didn't. It was well after I was out of college and already in the workforce that I learned of the HSP trait and started understanding more about and having more consciousness around some of the struggles I had been encountering at work and the preferences I truly had, such as having a quiet working environment and safe and healthy working conditions, a flexible schedule, or at least one that I felt suited the way that I worked best, a reasonable amount of work hours that didn't require major sacrifices to any other goals I had in my life, a sense of autonomy or the ability to make decisions on my own and work independently, and having alone time, having a short commute or no commute, and being able to be at home with my pets often. When I first set out to pursue theater design in college, I had a rude awakening early on when I realized that the industry was not something I could truly thrive in. Many of my colleagues were talking about 100-hour weeks, getting paid very little and eating ramen for several years until they could build up enough of a reputation in the industry to break through into any real success, and were making sacrifices in other areas of their life like their health and their relationships in order to do so. And as much as I loved the art and the collaboration of it all, I knew that I just couldn't do it. I knew I'd be miserable in the pursuit of success in that particular industry, even if I enjoyed the work itself. And this was a really hard thing to come to terms with. This is the area that so many people who knew me thought that I had the most promise in, so without it, I didn't know what would make sense for me. I later had other jobs that taught me more about what I didn't want and wouldn't put up with, like at one job not being able to have a water bottle at all with me during a shift, dealing with a lot of sensory overload in various environments, one job that had a long commute in city traffic dodging insane drivers, or crazy early hours getting up at 5 a.m. and crashing promptly at 4 p.m. when I'd get home, fighting hard to stay awake even till 7 p.m. to have any sort of a social life. I had also worked at a recreation center doing art instruction in an after-school care program, and of course, working with kids is rewarding, but I would come home from working only 3.5 hours and would feel like I worked a 9-hour day and was so drained. All of these experiences taught me what really wouldn't work for me, and after learning about the HSP trait, I began to deeply understand why. Upon reevaluating my career path several years out of college and trying to figure out what really was an optimal pursuit for me, I took an objective look at the areas in which I did feel like I had a decent knowledge base and some expertise in that could be of use in the world. I had a bachelor's degree in studio art with a concentration in photography. By this time, had also obtained a wellness coaching certification after taking a spontaneously inspired left turn to pursue something new and dip into one of my other areas of interest. I had at the time just discovered the HSP trait and started passionately diving into studying it and learning everything that I could about it. And also realized that through my own peripheral interest, I had accumulated a large amount of knowledge in the area of psychology, which I felt could be of use as well. After having identified all of what is already on the screen here and looking at things objectively with a creative eye and an open mind, I started to see how the puzzle pieces could fit together, and a more tailored-to-me career path idea started to emerge. I was aiming to figure out what to do with my new coaching certification and my rapidly increasing interest in the HSP trait, and a great deal of personally accumulated knowledge on things like holistic wellness, self-development, and personal psychology. And so it was decided. I was to set out to build a coaching practice that focuses on helping HSPs thrive, something I also felt personally motivated to figure out for myself as well. And while this proved to be a great venture to embark on, as this satisfied my desire to do something more meaningful, after a few years, as keeping in tone with my track record, I began to miss my creative side again, and I had years of artistic skill sets under my belt that I was now not utilizing. It became abundantly clear to me after being in the world of engaging with HSPs online and consuming content around highly sensitive people as a topic, that there was a great need for support for HSPs. There was so much we all still didn't understand about the trait, and especially how to thrive with the trait. I didn't have all the answers yet, but I was determined to keep digging and keep sharing and providing anything of value that I found, started to piece together, or came up with as a result of what I was seeing was working for the HSPs in my own life. It was also very clear to me that there was a great need for wellness programs and coaching to help people achieve their personal well-being goals in this crazy modern and demanding world. And the coaching industry was just starting to boom and flourish, and then the pandemic hit, and then the demand for wellness support grew even higher. And wherever there was a need for marketing or entertainment, there would always be a need for things like art, design, filmmaking, and photography. And that subsequently, by supporting and empowering HSPs to follow their dreams, I'd also be indirectly helping to contribute to other world issues that I cared about, like environmental concerns, animal welfare, and overhauling the food industry. Because many HSPs also care about these types of things, and may be waiting in the wings to pursue their calling, but may need encouragement or support or the tools to do so. And maybe what I could offer them could be just the wind in their sails that they've been needing. I started to see different sectors in the world that I could contribute to, that what I had to offer was purposeful and there was a need that I could help to fulfill. I also realized that while HSPs as a whole group could very greatly benefit from more support in the form of coaching, I recognized there was also a need for content that for HSPs could be accessible, easy to digest, and visually engaging. Videos that were relaxing to watch and encouraging, inspirational, comforting, and informative. And the younger, theater design, filmmaking loving artist kid in me lit up. I could create course modules for an online program and a YouTube channel where I could lean on my creative skills, package content in a way that spoke to the HSPs I wanted to reach on topics that are helpful and interesting. I could even incorporate nature photography, nature sounds, and music. I could go back to my beginnings and use my talents for conveying ideas in visual metaphors, which is what set me out on the theater design path in the first place. I could use my photography skills to create compelling images. My organizational and leadership skills would also become useful. It started to all fit together in the most incredible way. And then I became hooked. Everything finally seemed to have a purpose and have a place to be expressed and utilized. But there was even one more aspect that deepened all of this even further for me. Beyond what I found interesting, was good at, where I had knowledge to share and skills to offer, I also had 30 years of life experience working through all kinds of challenges, like chronic health issues, chronic fatigue, unhealthy relationships, anxiety and panic attacks, career indecisiveness, low self-worth, insecure attachment, and more. Not only could I offer support from all the knowledge I had been gathering from learning about the HSP trait, holistic wellness practices, the nervous system, the subconscious mind, nutrition, neuroscience, developmental psychology, healthy relationship dynamics, and even things like manifestation and intuition, and more, I could also utilize what I had been learning from facing and overcoming challenges in my personal life, and thread these things into my ideas about how to help highly sensitive people thrive. So not only was I checking off all of the boxes of filling a need in the world and doing something that I enjoy, but then taking it a step further and finding a way to make all of the difficult things I had been through in my life feel even more purposeful. Beyond just my own personal growth, but being able to help those who were in similar boats as to ones that I have been in. I had been able to take nearly everything on all of my lists and find an immensely purposeful overlap between them, and make my career pursuits a beautiful pairing of providing a coaching program for HSPs and a YouTube channel to make creative content for, bringing helpful information to those I'm trying to support and reach. It incorporates my interests, skills, passions for, and knowledge base in photography, wellness, psychology, video creation, communication, design, etc. It satisfies a lot of my lifestyle needs and preferences as an HSP, since it allows me to set my own schedule, make my own decisions, work from home in a quiet, controlled space, and be with my pets, and have a work-life balance. It provides something useful and valuable in the world, and best utilizes what I have to offer to be of service to the greater good, and also allows me to find deeper purpose for the challenges I've faced and had to overcome in the areas of health, relationships, and career. I found a way to design a path for myself that feels really fulfilling, that feels purposeful, that brings me joy, that gives me motivation and drive to create, and wake up every day with a sense of purpose, all to contribute something that feels greatly needed in the world, and that gives me a deep sense of fulfillment. Are there days when I'm tired, feeling less motivated, or stressed? Of course, life is still life and has its challenges, but being occasionally challenged is so minimal compared to what I now feel being in a groove that finally makes sense for me, feels so right, so aligned, so rewarding, and so sustainable. I have a deep sense that I'm on the right track, not only for my own individual self, but also that what I'm creating and putting out into the world will have a positive ripple effect. And the more I engage with this mission and follow this path farther, the more it makes me feel incredibly valuable, intelligent, and like all of my traits and passions and interests and skills and even shortcomings, or the things I have shied away from, all have been extremely purposeful, like a perfect storm to lead me exactly and only to what I'm doing now. It feels incredibly tailored to me, like I've been equipped with exactly what I need to succeed, and specifically given certain areas of weakness to deter me from going down a path not meant for me. So you can even begin to see your flaws and weaknesses as purposeful too. Like everything about who you are was intended to either be a door open or a door closed, leading you to exactly what you're meant to be doing. So to summarize, the formula encompasses your interests, the topics you are interested in or have always wanted to learn more about, what you're good at, things that you naturally show inclinations towards or skills that you have developed, what you enjoy, activities and pastimes that bring you joy or make time pass quickly, your lifestyle needs and preferences as an HSP, anything you've identified as a non-negotiable or deal breaker for you when it comes to the structure of your workday or your working environment. And on the note of adjusting for lifestyle needs, you might say, Tiara, that's much easier said than done. And I get it. I never said it was easy to accommodate for the needs of an HSP in today's workforce, which is part of the problem. But truthfully, it doesn't make it any less important for you. If you can't achieve every single one of the preferences on your lifestyle list, sit down and figure out the top 3 that you know affect you the most, and then don't budge on those or settle for anything that doesn't check those boxes. I know it might not feel realistic, but it is seriously worth the effort to try to workshop, especially if one of these things may entirely make or break your career satisfaction, your ability to perform, or even sustain the job. Get creative, resourceful, and determined to find what works for you, and not lower your standards as best and realistically as you can. Your knowledge and expertise, such as what you have studied or have a degree in, what the world or your community needs. And it's worth noting here that it doesn't have to be something huge like solving a world problem. Don't let that hold you back from thinking what you have to offer isn't valuable. Bringing joy to people and brightening someone's day is improving the whole planet on a micro level, and that's just as impactful because it has a ripple effect. It could simply be that you've noticed there is a need for a gluten-free bakery in your town, or that your clothing designs bring other people joy, and holding sewing classes could bring people together and strengthen bonds in your community. This section is about figuring out where you can fill a need in a small or large scale to translate all of this into a career that is lucrative, taking into consideration the basic principle of supply and demand. It also doesn't even have to be a need that people have. It could simply be something people want. So don't discount something you might enjoy pursuing just because you think it seems silly or unnecessary. With social media these days, the sky is the limit. So even if what you're good at and enjoy and have expertise in is crafting, for example, don't shy away from it. There are people making thousands of dollars a month selling stickers online that they've designed. There are millions of people following accounts of creators who make felt figurines or wool crocheted dolls and stop motion videos and miniatures and selling patterns and kits and things that they've made. There is also nothing wrong with just doing what makes you happy, regardless of whether it solves a community problem or not. But the point here is that in order to make a career out of it, it is useful to think about a demand that you can provide a supply for. And finally, if you want to add an additional refining element of sprinkling in even more personal meaning and fulfillment to what you choose to pursue, think about what you've been through and what you've learned from. This is entirely optional, but I do find that it can be very relevant for many highly sensitive people looking for more meaning in their careers, because this goes even deeper into where you can provide value, support, understanding, empathy, guidance, advice, resources, or tools, looking beyond just the knowledge that you've acquired through your studies, but considering your life experience as well. Incorporating this category can help you feel that the challenges you've faced and overcome may not just have been part of shaping who you are or purposeful for your own personal growth, but also could serve as an even greater good of helping guide others so that they have more help than you may have had while going through whatever it was. And of course, you don't even need to include this element if not desired. Not everyone wants to bring their personal challenges into the light of their career, or feel the need to discuss them with anyone that they don't wish to. This is purely your own preference. You have every right to keep what you've been through to yourself. But if you do feel motivated to share your insights from something you've overcome, this can help you fine-tune your career path even further. I truly believe that this method is the most comprehensive and effective way for any HSP to handcraft a career path that is most suitable to who they are as an HSP individual. It ensures all of the elements of a great career are there. It is fulfilling. It incorporates your interests, what you enjoy, and potentially also reaps the benefits of the challenges you've overcome. It is sustainable because it revolves around the things that you enjoy and fits your lifestyle. And it is valuable and lucrative because it utilizes and leverages the skills and the expertise and wisdom you have to offer, as well as meeting a need somewhere in the world and is therefore in demand. If you've really resonated with this method and all of the ideologies that I've shared with you so far in this video, and are really determined to not only identify your ideal career path, but also come up with a plan and best course of action to clarify your ideas even further, follow and pursue your dream and have the best chance of success at it, you may find a great deal of value out of joining the online program that I've built for highly sensitive people that walks you through designing a life that authentically supports and fulfills you as an HSP in the area of career as well as health and relationships. In the online course modules that are related to career, there are also worksheets and exercises to help you deepen your discovery and fine-tune your ideas. Modules that go beyond career into discovering your life purpose and guiding you in pursuing it, helping you gain the confidence and clarity to go after your dreams and the guidance to help you follow through and stay on track with your goals. There are also bonus modules on helping you heal your mindset around money to increase your abundance and capacity to earn and hold wealth, as well as a whole worksheet for outlining a business plan if you choose to go the entrepreneurial route, and so much more. And if you've made it this far into the video, I'm going to reward you by giving you a coupon to get $50 off your first 3 months of the program, which right now is run on a monthly membership basis, which means you only pay for the program for as long as you need and want to be in it. Use code YouTube50 at checkout to get that discount. It is my personal philosophy that there is very likely a reason why you are passionate about and skilled at the things that you are. And it is my hope that every HSP out there gets the encouragement and the support that they need to truly go after their dream. Because we deserve, just as much as everybody else, the chance to have a career path that is incredibly fulfilling, lucrative, and sustainable.